Hey all. Welcome to the channel, 6-Path Weeb here. Today, we're diving into a brand new fanfic adventure. Fairy Tale's fate transformed by Naruko's arrival. What happens when the world of fairy tale collides with the fiery spirit of Naruko Uzumaki? Let's just say, destiny is about to be rewritten. Disclaimer. The content on this channel is purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's get into it, guys, this one's gonna be epic. A year had passed since the mysterious disappearance of Tenro Island and its beloved members. Despite the tragedy, the remaining fairy tale members held on to hope, believing their friends were still alive. However, challenges soon overwhelmed them, making the search more difficult. Mikao, the fourth master of fairy tale, worked tirelessly to preserve the guild's reputation as one of the finest in Fiore. But without their strongest mages, Fairy Tale's prominence began to decline. Fewer mission requests came in, and the guild's earnings suffered. Eventually, they had no choice but to move from their central headquarters to the outskirts of Magnolia Town after their original building was reclaimed. A newer guild, Twilight Ogre, rose to take their place, and each day, more members left in search of new opportunities, seeking the sense of adventure that Fairy Tale could no longer offer. The guild had become quiet, with only a small group of loyal members remaining. Their new home required extensive repairs, and they had little choice but to reach out for assistance, even from Twilight Ogre. The legend of Trihexa, also known by the symbolic number 666, was first recorded in an ancient prophecy, referencing the fall of the great elemental nations. This mysterious being was mentioned in a carved stone tablet by a lone warrior who once encountered her. My wounds may have healed, but the memories still linger in my heart. I kept moving forward, though fear followed every step. The final shinobi village still standing had grown eerily quiet. As I entered, I saw someone standing there, a lone figure. No words were exchanged, but I knew. The moment I saw her, I understood. She was Trihexa, the legendary shinobi of unmatched skill. Her eyes held a quiet sorrow. There was something haunting about the stillness around her, something that made me realize how powerful she truly was. And then I saw her face. Naruko Uzumaki. The name I had known in a different light, now cloaked in mystery. After everything, Akatsuki, Madara, Kaguya, she remained. My heart longed to respond with determination, but instead of anger, I felt overwhelming sorrow. A quiet sadness, because I understood that something much greater than me had arrived. This was the turning point. This was the shinobi reawakening. Sasuke Uchiha. A lone figure, outlined by the amber glow of the setting sun, made her way over a hill, overlooking a massive forest. Dressed in a long brown cloak that flowed in the gentle wind, she cut a graceful figure as she traveled. The sun's rays danced along the edges of her hood, occasionally revealing strands of golden hair. As she entered the dense forest, even the wild animals instinctively stayed away. There was a quiet strength in her steps, something that seemed to gently alter the very earth beneath her. Perhaps it was her quiet confidence or the calm energy she carried that made the entire forest still in her presence. Eventually, she paused, leaning lightly against a tree and taking in the tranquility of the moment. As twilight fell, a glimmer of gold peeked through the trees. In the heart of the woods stood a temple made of radiant gold, its pyramid-like form glowing with the final touch of sunlight. She knew this place well. Flashback. Jura Nikki stood at attention, calm and composed, as the fourth king of Ishgar, Warid Sequin, stood silently before him. The king's usually light-hearted demeanor was replaced with a serious tone. Deep lines carved his face, signs of concern and many sleepless nights. Jura understood the importance of this meeting. Jura Nikki's, Warid began with a steady voice. I have an important task for you. Of course, you're free to decline. I accept, Jura replied without hesitation. Warid gave a slow nod. Good. You are to travel to the southernmost forest of Fiore. Hidden deep within is an ancient temple. Within it lives someone we may need very soon. Jura raised an eyebrow. Who lives there? Warid smiled faintly. She is known as Trihexa, the founder of the 10 Wizard Saints. Navigating the golden halls of the temple, Jura remained alert. To his surprise, there were no traps, no signs of resistance. The atmosphere felt almost peaceful. He finally entered a grand chamber, lined with statues of creatures bearing multiple tails. At the far end sat a young girl, no older than 15, on a throne-like seat, dressed in simple black attire. Her long, golden hair framed her face, and her calm eyes shimmered with depth, like the endless ocean. 6 whisker-like markings graced her cheeks, and 2 strands of hair curled up like small horns. Despite her youthful appearance, there was an air of timeless wisdom and strength. "I'm Trihexa," she said softly, her gaze focused but not unkind. "Protector of Fiore and the original founder of the Wizard Saints. Why have you come?" "I am Jura Nikis, member of Lamia Scale and 5th ranked among the current Wizard Saints." "5th ranked," Trihexa repeated thoughtfully. "So much has changed. I was the only member when this all began." She looked past him, her voice drifting with memory. "It's been a long time since I've seen anyone from the outside." "Master Ward sent me," Jura explained. "He said it's time for you to return." A quiet laugh escaped her lips. "I remember trying to convince Ward to join me. Is the world truly in need once again?" Jura nodded. "There's a sense of unease. He believes you're needed now more than ever." Trihexa turned toward a glowing rune near her throne. "I'm sealed to this temple. Only external magic can release the spell. I cannot do it myself." Jura hesitated, wondering why someone so powerful had been sealed. But the sincerity in her eyes and the trust Ward had placed in her pushed him forward. "You have nothing to fear," she assured gently. "If I were a danger, Ward would not have sent you." With a deep breath, Jura placed his hands on the rune and let his magic flow. The glow slowly faded, and the seal dissolved into the air. "Is that all?" he asked. Trihexa smiled. "Not quite." Before he could respond, the world around him faded into calm darkness. "How do you feel?" Calm blue eyes looked across to meet curious brown ones. Jura was leaning against a tree, having just woken up in the stillness of the night. The moon shone brightly, and the stars twinkled above. His body seemed fine, no injuries, no signs of distress, just a small headache, which he assumed came from whatever had caused him to fall unconscious. He gave himself a quick once-over before turning his attention back to the blonde-haired teen with twin horn-like spikes. "I feel all right, I suppose," Jura responded. The sky above was perfectly clear, offering an uninterrupted view of the constellations. Nights like these were often his time for quiet reflection or a break from his usual responsibilities. He turned back toward the only other person in the clearing. "What kind of magic do you use?" Trihexa smiled softly at the question, tilting his head toward the monk-like man with mild amusement. "I don't use magic." "What? That's surprising," Jura said with widened eyes. "I would have guessed you could use at least some form of magic. How else could someone protect Fiore?" "Perhaps here in Earthland, that's true," Trihexa nodded. "But not where I come from." "Where is that?" "A distant place, far from here, at the edge of the world," Trihexa replied. "There, people use chakra, an energy that comes from within. That's the source of my strength and what I now use to help protect Fiore." "Is it like magic?" Jura asked, genuinely intrigued. "In some ways, yes. But they're also very different. Chakra focuses more on internal control and precision, while magic tends to be broader and more varied. Both are powerful in their own right." "So which is stronger?" Jura asked, thoughtful. "Neither, really. It depends on the person using it," Trihexa replied with a gentle shrug. "I suppose that makes sense," Jura agreed. "So, what now?" "You've found me, so your mission is complete," Trihexa said. "Now, you guide me back to Ward." The two of them stood and made their way down a sloping hillside. Fortunately, after navigating another steep incline, they found an overgrown trail, faintly marked, suggesting it hadn't been used in quite some time. It was still better than wandering aimlessly. Jura noticed the grass looked brighter, the trees gently swaying though there was no breeze. He glanced at Trihexa, who remained silent, eyes calmly taking in the scenery. Even in the dark, Trihexa's glowing blue eyes gave the impression she could see clearly, perhaps a benefit of her chakra. "Who sealed you in that temple?" Jura eventually asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. "They must have been very powerful." "Not necessarily," Trihexa responded. "The person who sealed me was thoughtful and persuasive. Yes, she was strong, but she made me see that it would be better for the world if I stepped away for a time." "Why? You don't seem like someone who would threaten the world." "Because I was close to clashing with Acnologia," she said softly. "And she was concerned about the consequences of such a confrontation, what it might do to the world around us." Jura nodded slowly, letting the thought sink in. Then, Trihexa changed the subject. "Tell me about your guild." "What would you like to know?" Jura asked, glancing over with interest. He was already considering how he might convince her to join Lamia Scale. She would make a strong and valuable addition. Something interesting. About the missions, the members, anything like that. You'd probably get along with everyone. But be warned, it's a long walk back, so you'll be hearing a lot about them over the next few days. Trihexa nodded, understanding the distance was part of the journey. She had known Mavis would ensure her resting place was far from others. However, just as they were settling into the silence of the night walk, a presence behind them made itself known. "We never got to meet properly before, but somehow you were the only one who made it through," a voice said, stepping out from the shadows. The figure had hair that was black on one side and silvery gray on the other, tied back in a high ponytail. A long scar crossed his face where his right eye once was, and a curved marking surrounded the left. "Trihexa. I wonder how you know who I am," Trihexa said calmly, looking at him with quiet curiosity. "I assume you didn't come just to chat." "That depends on whether you'll answer my question," the man replied. "That depends on the question. Let's say I know someone who had access to some information about you. I followed the clues." "The king, perhaps. He's likely the only one who had even a fragment of the truth," Trihexa mused. "Possibly. I'm persuasive when needed." "I'm sure," she replied, losing interest. "Are you working with Acnologia?" he asked, his tone sharp, his energy shifting subtly with emotion. The shadows seemed to stir around him, gathering faintly at his feet. "No idea what you're referring to," Trihexa said with a faint smile. "I've never met that dragon, and if I had, perhaps I was strong enough to walk away from it." "That's impossible," the man exclaimed. "Even dragon slayers couldn't stand against Acnologia. But I will be the one to surpass him. I will rise to the top." "So you're the antagonist in this story," Trihexa said softly, more as a comment than an accusation. "Perhaps. I consider myself a visionary, not a villain." The word struck Trihexa as familiar. Back home, many called themselves revolutionaries too. It was a common title. "You're a mystery to me, Trihexa. That makes you a challenge. And I never back down from a challenge." "If that's what you believe," Trihexa replied, sighing gently as she took a step back. "I'd rather avoid conflict if possible." "Not unless you choose to follow me," the man declared. "Unfortunately, I only serve the king of Fiore," Trihexa answered plainly. The man, who had introduced himself as Rogue, nodded slowly. "Then you leave me no choice. I've heard legends of you, stories that you've never been defeated. I intend to change that. I will become the strongest, and you're my first step." Trihexa said nothing. Her stance remained relaxed, but her focus sharpened. She could tell Rogue was confident and determined. This wouldn't be an easy test. "Very well." In the blink of an eye, Trihexa vanished and reappeared behind Rogue. The movement was too fast for the eye to follow. Rogue barely had time to react as she delivered a clean, focused strike. Though it was controlled and measured, it sent Rogue off balance, falling back into the earth as a cloud of dust rose around him. "Wind release, gentle pressure strike," Trihexa said calmly, returning to her original posture. Trihexa completed a swift series of hand signs, aiming to bring the battle to a close as quickly as possible. He extended his hands toward his opponent, drawing in powerful currents of air from all directions. The winds howled in response, swirling around him with great force. His body began to glow with a silver light as he infused more energy into his technique, enhancing both speed and strength. Rogue attempted to move out of the way, but the rising pressure in the area slowed his movements. The atmosphere rippled with the intense force of the approaching technique. A deep rumble echoed throughout the forest, sending animals scurrying for safety as a dome of compressed wind expanded and exploded outward in a shockwave. The ground shook, trees bent from the force, and the earth beneath Rogue's feet cracked open. "How troublesome," Trihexa muttered, sensing that Rogue had escaped before the technique could connect fully. From the corner of his eye, he noticed a shifting shadow moving rapidly toward him. He quickly leapt to the side just as a hand reached out from the darkness, surrounded by swirling magic. Rogue emerged from the shadows, his arm outstretched, forming a blade from the concentrated energy. Trihexa vanished from the spot using an advanced movement technique and reappeared a distance away. Rogue fully stepped out from the shadows but had to dodge swiftly as a tremendous surge of water erupted from thin air, rushing past where he had just stood. The sheer strength of the water-based technique caused him to pause, feeling the overwhelming energy behind it. He shifted again, narrowly avoiding another powerful wave. Trihexa formed a new set of signs. Water style, water dragon bullet technique. Water surged upward, gathering from the very earth, swirling and condensing into a majestic dragon. It soared into the air, releasing a mighty roar as it spiraled through the sky. Its glowing eyes focused on Rogue as it lunged forward with incredible force. Just as the dragon was about to strike, a wall of dense darkness surged up from the ground, creating a barrier. The swirling shadows seemed endless, absorbing the water technique completely. Shadow Dragon's Vortex. With the attack neutralized, Rogue emerged behind Trihexa, launching a swift counter. But Trihexa, sensing the shift in the air, responded in time. A wave of chakra burst from him, forming a protective shockwave that pushed Rogue back, forcing him to regain balance. "This is starting to drag on," Trihexa remarked as he turned calmly to face Rogue again, his tone casual, though his eyes were sharp. "Let's wrap this up." In an instant, Trihexa vanished once more, reappearing before Rogue with a spiraling ball of chakra in hand. He aimed it with precision, but Rogue met the energy with his own, a powerful burst of shadow magic. The resulting clash forced them both back, but Rogue was the first to recover, emerging from another shadow to strike. Trihexa avoided the first strike and countered with a strong, focused kick, which broke through Rogue's shadow defense and knocked him back into a tree. The tree cracked under the pressure. Rogue dropped to the ground, but Trihexa followed up with a grab and a forceful toss into another tree. Rogue landed with effort, catching his breath. "Do you realize how unlikely your victory is?" Trihexa said as Rogue tried to steady himself. "I've yet to meet someone who can truly challenge me." "This isn't over," Rogue responded firmly. "Everything is going according to plan. It may take time, but what's set in motion cannot be undone." Trihexa narrowed his eyes. "We'll see." Suddenly, the energy on the battlefield shifted. A powerful and ancient magic radiated from Rogue. Trihexa's expression changed to one of interest. The conflicting forces of light and shadow pulsed through the air. "A dragon slayer with dual elements?" he questioned, now fully alert. "Interesting. White Shadow Dragon mode." Without a word, Rogue surged forward, his aura blazing. A ghostly dragon formed behind him as he raced toward Trihexa. Trihexa avoided the first hit but was caught off guard by a second blow that forced him back. A healing light enveloped the point of impact, restoring him instantly. His fists began glowing with silver chakra as he met Rogue's next charge. The two clashed, light against shadow, magic against chakra. Each strike sent waves through the clearing, the energy distorting the air. With every movement, the very ground trembled beneath them. Trihexa was forced to retreat, recognizing the growing strength of his opponent's magic. "You're holding nothing back," Rogue declared. "This is the power of the White Shadow Dragon." "And what is it you want?" Trihexa asked calmly. "To rise above all and usher in a new era," Rogue responded, his voice unwavering. "A time where balance is restored." Using the moment, Trihexa connected with the energy of the natural world around him, drawing from its endless well. Power surged through his body, his senses heightening as he entered a heightened state, an early version of nature chakra mode. Though incomplete, it granted him incredible strength and perception. Trihexa vanished in a blur, propelled by the energy. He met Rogue's charge directly, their opposing forces once again colliding in a stunning display. Wind swirled, magic and chakra forming a vortex around them. Each blow caused the battlefield to shift, the ground cracking further beneath their feet. A swift kick from Trihexa met only air as Rogue disappeared into a shadow, reappearing behind him. Trihexa spun just in time, landing a strong backhand. Rogue stumbled back, stunned but determined. He narrowly avoided the next attack but was struck by a surge of invisible force that knocked him down once again. Breathing heavily, Rogue stood tall. "I didn't expect you to be this strong," he admitted, eyes locked on the blonde shinobi. "But I won't give up. Not now." And from the edge of the field, a voice called out. "Trihexa." A new presence had arrived, none other than Naruko, the legendary kunoichi. She stepped onto the battlefield, her golden hair catching the moonlight, her expression calm but fierce. Trihexa turned, sensing a presence within the trees, and there stood Jura, quietly observing the entire battle from the beginning. For a moment, Trihexa had forgotten he was there. Jura's stance was alert, his aura shimmering with golden energy. There was no doubt Jura had the strength to go head-to-head with Rogue, but Trihexa viewed this moment as a chance to refine her abilities. "Go," Trihexa said firmly, her energy flaring around her like a swirling breeze of chakra. "Get as far from here as you can. I'll come find you once this is finished." Jura gave a nod of trust and vanished into the forest. Trihexa could feel his presence retreating into the distance. White Shadow Dragon's rough silk. Beams of light and shadow flew toward Trihexa, increasing in number until they filled the air. Calm and composed, She weaved several hand signs and summoned a barrier. Wood release, World of Trees wall. From the ground, hundreds of wooden branches surged upward, shaping themselves into a towering, woven wall. Earth and stone shifted beneath them as the barrier formed with stunning speed. A soft silver shimmer spread across the surface as Trihexa infused it with nature chakra, fortifying the defense far beyond its normal strength. Rogue's attack collided with the wooden barrier, breaking off chunks and sending shards in every direction. Still, the defense held strong, absorbing the brunt of the assault. Seizing the opportunity, Trihexa dashed forward, appearing beside Rogue in a flash and delivering a well-aimed strike. Rogue reacted instantly, blocking with his arm and leaping back for distance, though this gave Trihexa the time she needed to perform another technique. Wood release, Nativity of a Sea of Trees. An immense forest surged upward, spreading rapidly toward Rogue. The ground trembled under the vast woodland expansion. Rogue countered with waves of shadow and light, but the forest grew faster than it could be contained. Explosions of energy knocked down branches and trunks, but the trees regenerated with relentless speed. Rogue found himself overwhelmed, struggling against the weight of roots that pinned him in place. His energy flared in bursts as he tried to break free, but the roots only tightened. He looked up, visibly shaken as Trihexa approached, calm and resolute. "You've shown great strength," Trihexa said gently, her tone filled with admiration. "But our paths were destined to cross. I am the guardian of this world, and I will give you the honor of witnessing one of my greatest techniques." Trihexa. Rogue's voice was faint but clear, showing his exhaustion. "My true name is Naruko Uzumaki," she replied softly. "And this is my gift to the world." Silver light began to fill the forest as Naruko's chakra flowed outward, bathing the land in luminous energy. Her form glowed with brilliance, her presence powerful and still. She brought her hands together, concentrating. Secret art. Time seemed to pause. Naruko slowly opened her hands, revealing a glowing orb of silver light pulsing gently, like a heartbeat. She raised one hand, pointing it to the sky. Illuminating heaven. The world brightened in an instant. A majestic sound echoed in the distance like a celestial horn announcing a new beginning. The light spread in every direction, pure and endless, washing over the land like the first sunrise. Naruko's golden hair danced in the light as she stood firm, radiating strength and serenity. The world around them was transformed. Forests, mountains, everything had faded into silence, replaced by a peaceful stillness. So this is how she made it through, thought Rogue, awestruck. And I thought she would be weakened after being sealed away for so long. I guess I underestimated her. Still, even without me, the moment the portal opens, the dragons will arrive. And with that, Rogue gently closed his eyes, drifting into rest. A year had passed since the mysterious disappearance of Tenro Island along with its residents. Despite the uncertainty, the remaining members of Fairy Tail never lost faith that their friends were still somewhere out there. However, growing responsibilities and unexpected challenges made it difficult for them to continue their search. Macau, now serving as the fourth Fairy Tail Master, worked tirelessly to keep the guild afloat and preserve its once legendary reputation. Without their most powerful members, Fairy Tail's influence began to wane. Mission requests became increasingly rare, and with a declining income, they were eventually forced to relocate from their grand headquarters to a smaller location on the outskirts of Magnolia Town after losing ownership of their original guild hall. Twilight Ogre rose in prominence, gradually replacing Fairy Tail as the leading guild. Disheartened by the changes, many members began leaving in pursuit of new adventures and opportunities that Fairy Tail could no longer offer. The guild's numbers dwindled, and their new home required extensive and costly repairs. With few options left, they were reluctantly forced to seek aid from Twilight Ogre. Meanwhile, after being released and following an intense confrontation with a dragon slayer, Naruko quietly left the ruins of her confinement deep within the forest. She began her journey northeast, heading toward the remote and mountainous region bordering Fiore, Seven, and Bosco. This corner of the kingdom remained mostly wild and untouched by civilization. Centuries ago, before the rise of magical guilds, the people of Fire Village once called these lands home. It was a place full of mystery and ancient enchantments. Long ago, magical disturbances caused by the powerful black wizard Zareth and the creation of Nirvana by an ancient civilization led the mages of Fire Village to seal off the boundary forest from outsiders. Complex magical runes and clever traps were placed throughout the region, many of which remain active even after hundreds of years. Some believed the villagers were protecting something, or someone, but no one knew for certain. Over time, these stories faded into legend. Today, The boundary forest is mostly visited by magical creatures, as people tend to avoid its ever-changing paths and strange phenomena. Some even say the forest is alive, aware of anyone who enters its depths. Faint illusions play tricks on the eyes, while ghostly images flicker through the trees, disappearing before they can be fully seen. The windless trees seem to sway and whisper, as if discussing the presence of an unfamiliar guest. Trails vanish and shift without warning, confusing even the most experienced travelers. But Naruko felt at ease here. After several hours of navigating the shifting terrain, she finally sensed what she had been searching for. Tilting her head slightly, she noticed a subtle change in the air around her. A barrier, she mused silently. Her training allowed her to sharpen her senses: sight, hearing, scent, touch, and instinct. In her homeland, she had learned to analyze and track energy patterns known as chakra. However, this new world operated on magic, which functioned on entirely different principles. Chakra and magic could not detect one another. Because of this, Naruko was like a hidden presence, visible to the eye, yet undetectable through magical means. Her skills in stealth and strategy, developed through her training as a shinobi, gave her a distinct advantage in this unfamiliar land. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the stillness. "Listen," a man spoke softly. He stood upright, his back turned toward Naruko, his gaze focused on something in the distance. "Do you hear that?" Naruko stood a few meters away, her expression thoughtful. Though puzzled by the question, she took it seriously and tuned into her surroundings. The sounds of the forest embraced her, the rustling of leaves, the gentle creak of tree branches. The trees themselves seemed to whisper, as if in conversation. Her connection with nature was profound, and it allowed her to understand the world on a level few others could. Yet despite her heightened awareness, she sensed nothing out of the ordinary. Only the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat and the quiet song of the forest remained. "I hear nothing unusual," Naruko said, turning to glance at the man who had yet to turn around. He gave a small nod in agreement. "Yes," he responded. "Nothing unusual. But the boundary forest is known for its wild creatures. These lands are still untouched by much of civilization. At this time of day, it should be alive with their presence. Here, silence itself is what's truly out of place." "A barrier," Naruko concluded, crossing her arms thoughtfully as she recalled the earlier shift in the air. "It must be encircling the area. Is it your doing?" The man gave a soft chuckle. "I've never been great with runes," he admitted. "And this is a particularly complex barrier, far beyond my capabilities." "An opponent?" "Perhaps in a distant past. The history and legends tied to this barrier are rather fascinating. It seems everything centers around a powerful enchanted artifact known as the Phoenix Stone," the man explained, finally turning to face the young blonde. "A mission for another time, perhaps. You haven't aged a day. Time hasn't treated you quite the same." "Worried," Naruko said with a gentle smile, recognizing the familiar face now marked by age. "It's good to see you." A century ago, Ward had been a youthful man with a rectangular face and unruly black hair. Now, he bore features that seemed part plant, his head resembling the twisted trunk of a tree, with a leafy canopy replacing his once dark hair. He wore a white coat marked with an upward arrow, loose pants, and practical black boots. Draped over his outfit was a high-collared kimono secured by a sash. "I'm still as charming as ever," Ward declared with a warm laugh. "It's a joke. Just a joke." "What's the situation now?" Naruko asked, leaning in with focus. "How serious is it?" Ward's expression turned thoughtful. "There's a lot to share. Many events have transpired since you were sealed away. It's time you learned the full picture." Naruko gave a silent nod. "Go on." Ward hummed softly, scratching his head as he sorted through his thoughts. Naruko crossed her arms again, waiting patiently. "First, you need to understand Mavis's reasons. I admit I don't know every detail, but Prek did tell me some of what he uncovered." "And what did he find?" Naruko asked curiously. "Not what he expected, unfortunately, but still something extraordinary," Ward replied quietly. "You see, Mavis recognized that you possessed uncommon abilities, skills and talents none of us had seen before. But compared to the average mage in terms of raw power, you didn't stand out dramatically. You excel in hand-to-hand combat, weapons training, and have a sharp, analytical mind. You even demonstrated some of your elemental techniques, what you called jutsu, but nothing that appeared overly exceptional." That much was true. During group training, Naruko had proven to be a capable and strategic fighter. Her techniques were fascinating, but she had rarely shown more than elemental control and a few foundational techniques involving nature-based chakra. My more advanced abilities are very powerful, Naruko explained with a hint of amusement. So I only use them when absolutely necessary. Even so, we didn't know that, Ward said. Neither did Mavis. So when she heard about your goal to face Acnologia, she made a decision. She chose to protect you. She crafted a containment spell using the strongest runes and enchantments she knew, meant to keep you safe. You must understand, Acnologia was feared for their unmatched strength. She wanted to prevent you from provoking a conflict that could have shaken the entire world. I still don't understand how she managed a time-sealing spell. Naruko listened quietly. But that wasn't the only reason, Ward continued. We knew you had developed feelings for her. It was obvious. She sensed it too. But fear grew inside her. She was afraid of returning your feelings, not because she didn't care, but because of something else, the curse of Angsurum. What is the Angsurum curse? Naruko asked softly. It's a powerful and unusual kind of magic, often referred to as the contradiction curse. In simple terms, the more you love, the more it takes from you. But when filled with hatred, the curse loses its strength. It affects the people you care about most. Naruko remained silent, absorbing the explanation. You're persistent. Mavis knew a simple stay away wouldn't stop you. And because of that, she feared you might be affected by the curse. I understand, Naruko said, her tone calm. Ward gave a small smile. I'm not sure you fully do. If you had fought Acnologia, she feared your safety. If you stayed close to her, the curse could still affect you. So, the only clear answer left was to seal me away, Naruko finished. Exactly, Ward said, nodding. Naruko looked at him evenly, her thoughts hidden behind a steady gaze. She chose to steer the conversation forward. Did she seal my abilities too? Yes, Ward replied, his eyes drifting to the ancient runes still faintly visible across Naruko's chest. Because your skills are so unique, she feared you might possess a way to break free. But I can tell it didn't work entirely. I still sense the weight of your presence. It worked, but not the way she anticipated. She underestimated my potential, Naruko admitted, closing her eyes briefly in thought. I have 3 tiers of strength, this form being the most basic. She only managed to seal the final stage, and unfortunately, she used a method that only she could reverse. Which means, I'm currently limited to this state. I'm afraid you might be stuck this way for a long while. If not forever, Ward said with a serious tone. Naruko narrowed her eyes slightly. Explain. Mavis has passed on, Ward said gently. Naruko's eyes widened in response, more emotion than he had seen from her so far. So have Yuri and Precht. It's just me. And now, you. Mavis, Yuri, and Precht. How? Naruko asked softly. I don't know everything, but Precht claims Zareth was involved, Ward said, watching as Naruko's expression became more focused. Precht tried to preserve her essence within a lacrima under the guild, hoping to one day bring her back. Though he failed, he did find something else, an immense source of magic, seemingly endless in supply. That's why I said he didn't find what he sought. But he discovered something equally significant. Imagine having access to Etherean-level magic without limits. In the wrong hands. And that magical source remains beneath the guild along with Mavis? Naruko asked. Correct. It's called Luministoir, Ward replied. Yuri. He passed away long ago. I believe from natural causes. As for Precht, he met his end more recently, during a confrontation with Fairy Tail itself. A change in leadership? Naruko guessed. Far from it, Ward began, gazing up at the sky with a wistful expression as he recalled his old friend. Magic changed her, twisted her ideals and dreams into something unrecognizable from the person we once knew. She formed a group called Grimoire Heart, with the vision of creating a perfect world of magic. To accomplish that, she pursued Zareth. But her path eventually led to a confrontation with Fairy Tail. And in the end, she was defeated. I understand, Naruko replied quietly, her mind racing as she processed everything. This brings me to the reason I released you from your confinement, Ward said, turning to look directly into the eyes of the blonde girl. Fairy Tail has endured difficult times. About a year ago, they lost many of their strongest members, including their master. Only a few remain now, none strong enough to protect the guild on their own. Luministoir is vulnerable, Naruko concluded, her thoughts turning to Mavis. Many seek that power, Ward warned. Somehow, the Alvarez Empire learned of its existence. They've long waited for a chance to claim it. They even tried to start a conflict over it in the past, but thanks to the deterrents like Etherean and Face, their plans were delayed. Still, It's only a matter of time before they act again. Naruko gave a small smile of determination. There was no way she would let anyone threaten Mavis's legacy or the magic she protected. I understand my role now. I will join Fairy Tail. And protect what matters. Good, Warrid nodded, sharing her resolve. And there are also a few open positions in your old organization, if that interests you. You use ranks now, right? Naruko asked. Jura mentioned something about that. Yes, he did, Warrid replied. A talented mage, that one. Then only the top rank will do, Naruko said firmly. It just so happens that position is vacant, Warrid said with a light chuckle. Its previous holder, God Serena, stepped down. But earning that title will be no easy task. Naruko tilted her head. Why is that? First, you'll need to be appointed a regular saint. Then you must prove yourself worthy of the title God of Ishgard once again, Warrid explained with a knowing smile. You held it before under the name Trihexa, as an honor for helping establish the organization. But Trihexa no longer exists as far as the world knows. You'll have to earn that place again, this time as Naruko Uzumaki. Naruko gave a calm nod, silently wondering who this God Serena was. Quite a dramatic title, she mused to herself. Warrid smiled and continued. Now, let me share the heart of Fairy Tail in the words of Mavis herself. Comrades isn't just a word. It's about heart. It's about trust. It's about always being there for one another. Lean on me when you need to. And I'll do the same. In moments of joy, sorrow, or struggle, you are never alone. The hopes we carry shine like stars in the night sky. Even the soft breeze that touches our skin holds the promise of tomorrow. So come. Walk forward with me, guided by the melody of the fairy's song. Naruko simply smiled, warmed by the words. No. Grand Doma's voice echoed across the chamber. Naruko stood calmly despite the forcefulness of the rejection. She appeared unaffected, her composure unshaken. Warrid Sequin straightened with a sigh, clearly used to the council's resistance. His leafy hair rustled slightly as he ran a hand through it. At the head of the table, Grand Doma pointed his staff toward the composed girl. She has no background, no records, nothing to prove she even exists, he declared, though it sounded more like formality than true frustration. Why should someone so unknown be allowed into one of Fiore's most respected institutions? Because I founded it, Naruko thought, suppressing a smile. Warrid, though often informal, came prepared for this meeting. While Naruko's induction wasn't critical, it would grant her influence and access to resources that could aid her mission. She's not a stranger, Warrid asserted. Naruko Uzumaki. 15 years old. My apprentice. I raised her in secret to protect her and train her. That explains the lack of documentation. They had agreed on this story together. With Warrid's age and Naruko's youthful appearance, it was believable. Few would guess she was older than she appeared or realize her true identity. Her wood-based magic bore striking resemblance to Warrid's, further supporting their narrative. Grand Doma looked around, but the rest of the council offered no opposition. She's still very young, he argued. The organization needs experience now more than ever. With our numbers reduced, strength alone isn't enough. Warrid smiled knowingly. It said the original founder of the 10 Wizard Saints, Trihexa, was also just 15 years old. Grand Doma flinched subtly. It wasn't just a rumor, the archives clearly stated that Trihexa was exactly that age when the group began. Naruko inwardly smiled. Last time we welcomed someone without a background, things didn't end well, Grand Doma added. I have reason to be cautious. He was referring to Jelal Fernandez, a former member who had betrayed the council. His actions had caused chaos, and the memory still left a mark. And for that reason, my answer is no. Naruko stepped forward, arms crossed, her voice calm but confident. You want experience? I've faced many skilled mages without a single loss. You want strength? I can say without hesitation that I surpass even the 4 heavenly kings of Ishgard. One of the kings twitched at that, visibly surprised. There were a few muffled laughs from the table, and Grand Doma scoffed. Warrid gave a nervous look. Here we go, he thought. Naruko narrowed her eyes and calmly released a wave of her energy. The room reacted instantly, air shimmering with power, a gentle wind swirling through. The marble beneath her feet trembled slightly. A soft silver glow surrounded her, a quiet demonstration of her strength. Warrid blinked and instinctively took a step back. This was a power that could not be denied. Naruko took one more step forward, ready to face whatever challenge came next. The grand doors flew open as a formation of guards rushed in, their weapons drawn and glowing softly with magic. The blonde girl stood at the center of the room, calm and composed. The mages surrounding her began to cast spells in an attempt to dispel the magic she was emanating, but it was no use. The closer they got, the more sluggish they became, as though a heavy force weighed them down. Before long, they were gently lowered to the ground, fast asleep without understanding what had happened. The council was momentarily frozen in disbelief, though Grand Doma remained composed, a true leader in every sense. He struck his staff against the marble floor with a resounding echo, voice booming with authority. "That's enough." In an instant, the overwhelming presence faded. The room returned to normal, and everyone slowly exhaled, only now realizing how tense the moment had been. Naruko stood in the same posture as before, arms crossed, unmoved and serene, while the council recovered from the experience. Their expressions held a mixture of awe and caution as they looked toward her. Naruko simply offered a slight smile, clearly amused. "Was that not strong enough?" she asked with a hint of playfulness. Grand Doma looked displeased with the display, yet could not deny the strength she had demonstrated. "She's incredibly capable," a council member murmured, nodding in reluctant acknowledgement. Naruko turned her gaze toward the chairman. "So? Am I accepted?" The room grew quiet. Grand Doma held her gaze firmly. Naruko didn't blink. "No," he replied finally. Naruko held the silver coin in her hand, its design intricate and centered with a delicate cross. It marked her official induction into the Wizard Saints. The decision had taken extensive discussion and much convincing, especially from Ward, but eventually, they had reached a compromise. Though assigned an available position among the ranks, Naruko hardly paid attention to the number. Her sights were set on the top seat among the 4 heavenly kings. However, she'd need to wait before challenging Hyberian, who currently held the 2nd rank. After a moment of reflection, Naruko tucked the coin away. She turned toward Ward, who had been watching her quietly. "Now that all that business is finished, what comes next?" he asked, gesturing lightly toward her current outfit, or lack of a proper one. "As my apprentice, you really ought to wear something more fitting. Just trousers don't represent the dignity of your role." Naruko's eyebrow twitched slightly at the comment. "My next destination is Fairy Tale," she responded, her tone becoming thoughtful. She looked toward the direction of Magnolia Town. "Protecting Mavis's resting place is my main objective. Helping the guild recover without their key members or their former master is also important." Ward smiled warmly. "Sounds like a noble goal. Just remember, not every challenge is yours to solve. Life is meant to be lived. Find someone who supports you the way you support others. Guilds are families, after all. What's life without companionship and shared dreams?" Naruko gazed up at the night sky, deep in thought. "The will of fire." Ward's voice pulled her back. "One more thing. There's a guild moving in the shadows. Nothing concerning yet, but their activity is increasing." "What's their name?" Naruko asked. "Tartarus," Ward answered. "They seem fascinated with ancient magic and mysterious legends." The moon hung high above, casting a gentle silver light across the land. Where once stood a vibrant forest, now lay a strange, quiet emptiness. A deep stillness had taken over, and at its center stood a tall, mysterious figure. Cloaked in shadow, a single glowing eye peered out from beneath the hood, observing the scene carefully. Nearby, another being drifted silently, his form indistinct and wrapped in shifting swirls of darkness. No facial features were visible, only hollow eye sockets that seemed to absorb the moonlight. He moved gracefully through the air, silent and detached, while the first figure knelt and extended a hand over a strange magical signature left behind. A soft purple light shimmered, illuminating the area. A pulse of energy swept outward, hinting at unusual power. The atmosphere stirred as the world seemed to shift for a brief moment. The magic faded, and in its place stood a figure, future rogue, gasping, visibly overwhelmed from the intense surge of energy. The tall figure observed calmly before turning to his partner. "Get in contact with Kyoka. She needs to know what we've discovered. A powerful new presence has emerged. It may influence everything we've planned." Dear YouTube family, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with all the latest videos. Thank you so much for your support. Until next time, stay awesome. 6 Path Weeb.